good evening to you and welcome to this program of Rodney Groundings. I'm your host, Deon Abrams, and my guest this evening, as has been for the past few weeks, is Brother Tavuma Ogunseye, and together we'll be talking about things that have been happening here in Guyana. I want to welcome you to Rodney Groundings, Brother Tavuma.
It's a great pleasure to be here once again
All
to
right.
continue our good work.
Well, it's a pleasure having you. Just remember that the Walter Rodney Groundings is on YouTube, Forbes Deon Abrams, my YouTube. It's also on the Facebook. I normally post it to Facebook. And on Wednesday evenings, the Society for African Empowerment, Guyanese Empowerment, CH, an organization that had been recently formed, operating out of Buxton and spreading across the country, that the WPA Wednesday evening program also carries, that's hosted by Brother Kidaki Amsterdam on Wednesday evenings at 7. So you can, and then you can stream it, it's streamed live from Channel 9. So if you check the Channel 9's website, every Sunday evening you can get a program live. So let people be aware of that so that those who want to continue following the program can also do so. Brother, we're gonna, to begin, we want to, I believe, express our hope that Brother Corbin, who is not well at the moment, that he is going to be well soon. We're hopeful that with the kind of attention that he gets, that he recovers fully and is able to resume normal life. I don't know if you want to.
Yes, I want to join you because the WPA, when we heard of it, we were very concerned because Comrade Corbin have been a very important comrade and a person to whom we collaborated, quite a lot politically, that give rise to the APMU and even the subsequent coming to power, the APMU AFC coalition. So on hearing that he got both himself and his wife got struck down with the coronavirus, we were very concerned and we wished him a speedy, both of them a speedy recovery. And this demonstrates that everyone and anyone is open to this infection.
Yeah, but I mean, is it that serious in Guyana? I mean, from all that has been happening, seems to suggest that we're living under normal conditions because life is slowly being made to seem normal again by the current administration. What is your
made to see? I think they're in a haste to. They have announced that from tomorrow, if I recall correctly, that all government workers will have to turn out to work as usual, and they put an end to the rotation, system. So for the government, they're in hastening the return to normalcy. And I think somewhere I heard Barra Jagdeo defending the government opening up the country policy. And, he criticized the APMU AFC coalition opposition as wanting the country to be perpetually locked down. I mean, that is the kind of callous, the way in which they treat the thing. They're not treating the pandemic and how we handle the pandemic, as an important non-political issue, and to try to bring to bear in whatever decisions the government make or the society make as a whole is informed by science. It makes me remember the Trump phenomenon.
Yeah.
So we seems to be in a haste to have normalcy, notwithstanding the fact that a large section of the population still behaves like though the virus and the pandemic is not with us, you know.
But what about the numbers? We've passed 100. The last figure I saw was 102. And we've passed 3,000 persons who would have been infected.
It's higher than 102. I saw 104 some years, and I saw there's some others. So, you know, we going up. Yeah.
But I'm hopeful, you know, because even our airports are going to be open, and they're saying that systems are going to be put in place and all of that. I'm hopeful that, you know, the result is not, because there is a sense that there is no care. This lack of care for the ordinary people, and it's following in the footsteps of the Donald Trumps and those, and the Brazilian president. But the thing is, when they get sick, they can get the
Best treatment
of care.
Yeah.
All right, Trump and his wife are now affected by COVID. It's unfortunate that, you know, they can rally through because of the kind of status they have. For me, it's pretty unfortunate, because the ordinary man, you know, is going to walk the streets and possibly collapse, possibly die, and they're going to live to continue to use people as pawns and baits. From the inception, the PPP did make it appear, you know, that their favor was for the business community, and so people and their lives really take second place. And I don't know, the idea that you were saying that the opposition wants the country to be perpetually locked down, when all the signs that are before you are suggesting that particularly in Region 4, the numbers are climbing. All right, and we still don't have the capacity to deal with a massive rate of infection if it does spread that widely.
Well, you see, as you said, quite correctly said, their decision is more influenced by the fact that a lot of their support base is in commerce and business, and October, November, December is the high point for business,
and that's going to be mad.
And they're trying to facilitate that group, you know, at the expense of the rest of the country. But that is the reality of the situation.
So, but if you go into the stores and so on, there is no social distancing. None of the practices that used to be adhered to, right? I mean, you go into the stores, it's just a crowd. You're mingling with everybody, and you know, nobody is really concerned about sanitizing your hands and all of these things. All of those things have been thrown out the window.
And yeah, they extended the hours to close down to 9 o'clock. You know, so we just have to be hopeful
that some of them die out, and then they can get the. Yeah, you don't want to say these things, but that's the experience that will teach them the wisdom that they should have. But the same thing with the sugar industry. Sugar is back on stream as a main player, and we did argue it last time that there is no rational economic sense in doing that, but the PPP does not factor in what is rational and as against what is political.
I won't say rational is rational from their point of view.
For them,
you know,
it is.
They're people very clear that their partisan interest is more important than the national interest, and they have no confusion on that. The coalition had confusion on that, but the PP is very clear, you know. So whether it be the sugar industry, whether it be what decisions they make in terms of COVID, whatever is their policy, it is rooted in terms of the party interests and how that policy or measure strengthens the party chances of retaining power. It's very clear.
Let's see. Let's hope that the country doesn't suffer. continue to be faced with the persecution of the staff of GCOM. And the point is being made overwhelmingly that it's only one ethnic group that is being targeted, that the direct efforts to treat these people in a way that is inhumane, criminal, totally, out of order, is one that continues to happen. And the voices that were loud in criticism for atrocities by any administration, for simple things that might have occurred under the coalition, they seem to be silent in the face of these travesties that are taking place against particularly our women, who would have been working at GCOM, earning their livelihoods and doing a job that they have been doing all the time. Now, we spoke about this before, but it seems as though whatever people are saying, even the Jamaican Gleaner had an editorial on it, chastising the prosecution of the staff at GCOM. But the government continues on this dangerous path. What really is their game?
I think the game is clear. They want to demonstrate to the world and to the country and the world that the electoral riggers in Guyana is African Guyanese, and they are associated with the PNC, APMU coalition. That's the clear objective. And I'm more concerned with the police behavior, because the police should be independent and professional on this matter. And I think that the police approach is very partisan. Because, one could argue, if you investigating electoral malpractices in the elections, then you have to investigate across the board, because there have been accusations of electoral wrongdoings committed in PPP area and by PPP people. And even the CARICOM observers concede that there was a level of irregularities, and therefore the police ought to be pursuing this thing in a more objective way. But they're under the instructions of the government, and they're actually doing what the government wants them to do, and I think that is the real sad part of it. In terms of the most recent prosecution, Roxanne Myers, she was taken into the police by her lawyer, Nigel, Hughes, and she invoked her constitutional rights to silence. Now, this is a constitutional right, and citizens has a right, if they're being accused, to remain silent. And the fact that she remained silent became, in the eyes of the police and the administration, the worst possible thing that she could do. And they see it as non-cooperation with the investigation, rather than seeing it as a citizen who is up against these politically oriented charges, has been directed or instructed by her lawyer to proceed in a certain way. And on the basis of their interpretation that she is non-cooperation and she being obstructive to the investigation, they decided that they're going to teach her a lesson. And they kept her as long as they could into custody, and only on I think Friday or so they brought her before the court, and she was granted bail. $300,000 bail on 2 charges of misconduct in public office, which seems to to be a very flimsy charge in the context of what they say they're trying to prove. But you see, again, I think that the coalition is not defending its supporters, and they're not fighting in defense of this principle. You know, the coalition have two responsibilities. You have a responsibility to defend your supporters,
Well, we
people
can't
who
say
support
that it's
you.
a supporter of the coalition.
No, but I'm saying they have as a opposition the right to defend their supporters, regardless of wherever the prosecution from the state comes from. That is an automatic right of an opposition. Then, as an opposition, they also have the right to defend any citizen who is being abused, you know, by any state institution, government, police, or wherever. That is, those are fundamental, you know, obligations of the political opposition. And one doesn't get the sense that the opposition is energetically defending people, you know. I think the opposition should not allow itself to be mooted because the PPP is trying to whitewash them on the question of electoral fraud and so forth. You have to defend people. That is your role. And once you interpret the situation as political oppression or repression, then automatically you have to find ways of clearly coming to the defense of those people. And of course, putting out statement is part of the defense, but it's not, in this situation, it's not adequate. You have to do more than that. Because you're dealing with a party and a government that is hard-headed and ruthless. And you have to make them know that you are prepared also, you know, to match, you know, their attitude, you know, as an opposition. If you don't do that, these things will continue and expand.
Yeah, but the contempt is further reflected in the fact that they continue to target the leader, the chairwoman.
Well, that's interesting because, you know, I'm watching that one with great interest.
Yeah.
Because, you know, over the years, there's a unwritten agreement between the PNC and the PPP, coming from the Burnham Jagon period, that they don't attack the leaders. They attack the membership and some the lower members, but they're very careful how you deal with the top leadership of each party. And both of them have respected that to a great extent, and that in a big way, in my view, is responsible for the fact that they have been able to have their confrontations and they don't reach overboard. It is interesting to see on this matter with the Voldo, whether the PPP is prepared to break that unwritten agreement and to open the door, you know, to real hostility between the two sides, you know. So I'm really interested to see how that will play out. Because I know they will prosecute and harass low down the ranks. But I believe once they begin to lock up PNC leaders, I think they're crossing the historical understanding. And I think the door will open for all kinds of possibilities. So I'm interested to see how far they will go with that, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that they have laid charges against her opens the door for that possibility. And the fact that they continue to not only one charge, they've instituted more than one charges, and then the disrespect is for the evidence in the demand that she reports to the police when she's in plain view for the police to access and all of these things. It just demonstrates, and they're demonstrating their lordship, their power.
Yeah, they're demonstrating lordship and their power, but you see, they're going to argue that some of those things are procedural things, you know. You go to a court, the court give a bail, the court say you must report to the police, you report to the police. But the test is how far they will go with it. Because they'll have to, if they're serious, they'll have to fight for conviction. And if they're convicted, they will have to impose the penalty, and that is the test. That is the test. That will be the test, and that could be the turning point in terms of their historical understanding. So I'm open, and it poses another, it leads to another point. I'm surprised that a lot of the media didn't pick it up. I think the last press conference I heard that Jack Dio held, I think it was not this Friday, the Friday before, but anyway, I could cite it by mentioning one of the major issues of the press conference. It was the press conference where he was explaining the PPP's granting of ExxonMobil the license for Pereira. And he was making the point that Harmon, even though he's a lawyer, seems not to understand the difference between a license and a production agreement. That particular press conference, I think, since I can't remember the date, but anybody who want to follow, they could use it as an anchor. But there's an important point that Jagdeo made earlier before he actually began to deal with the substantive matters of the press conference. And I am surprised that the press didn't pick it up. He said, okay, I'm going to use my words, but I think I will capture exactly basically what he said. He said that, look, there are many people who had expected the PPP to go after government officials who they have identified while they were in opposition as engaged in economic crimes. Okay? And he said that the PPP present position is that they're not going after those persons now. That what the PPP is concerned with after reflection is to use this present period to deliver, things to the population. But they will get back to the issue of prosecution for economic crimes later. I think that was a significant statement by Jack Dio, which the media never picked up. So apparently the PPP have two approaches to how they deal with the opposition on matters they allegedly argue represent corruption and malpractices. They are presently pursuing vigorously the election crimes as they accuse the opposition. But the economic crimes that they accuse the opposition when they were in government, they put that aside for the time being. They put it aside. And one could give all kinds of interpretation, but it is significant, but the press didn't pick it up.
Yeah, but one in the interpretation is that because the very prior deal is under question because there is a cloud over exactly who owns the concession. And the PPP is not disclosing the real owners of the concession. So when you're talking about crime, you're not prosecute. It could be interpreted to me as not prosecuting because you are in the process of committing crimes also. So
you're quite right. But I didn't want to go down the line right there. But just because I think it's clearly what Jack is signaling.
Yeah.
Look, it's time for thief now. Yeah. And then look, we got time with them things.
So when you come, we allow you to go. We can pile up the evidence and
so it's they have two approaches. When with economic matters, which would be important to them because their time to thief. Don't make the big issue right now. Yeah, because to make the big issue is to make it difficult for them to thief.
I know.
Yeah, understand. But the election thing, they can make a big issue because they feel comfortable that they could always win the elections and that doesn't pose any problem to them, But I didn't really wanted to get down that line, but you forced me down the line. I didn't really want to get down that line at this stage. Because I've given two public commitments to deal with PPP. I said that I'm not going to tell them anything about that could help them with good governance.
Okay.
And then I've said that I will resolve the criticism of the government till after the honeymoon period of 90 days, the 3 months. Okay. So I don't really want to take them on a certain way till after the 90 days, I'm trying to honor that public commitment, But sometimes you get put in these awkward positions.
Okay, but the contention by the APNU is that the persecution of these agents of GCOM, and particularly those who are perceived to be, because it's perception, that they are perceived to be aligned to the APNU, is a deliberate attempt at trying to get them off the scene so that they would not be able to testify should the elections petition come up. How sound
Well,
reasoning is that?
I think it's very plausible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really don't know the law to the extent, but I suspect if you criminalize them or you find them guilty of fraud, then they will not be a credible witness in another trial, because that conviction will be held up against them. So I think it's very plausible, you know. It also, as we on it, I noticed that Harmon in his statement on the continued prosecution link our friend which on the earlier program we allow pass, the Minister of Sports, Junior, what is his name again? Ramson Junior. Remember, you had raised it very earlier that one of the workers from GCOM who was arrested had said that in the process of the interrogation, the police put her into contact with a person who they identify as Ramson Jr. And he spoke with her, and he told her that if she cooperates and give them information on Mingo and the others, they will go light with her. And then I told you that we got to be very careful with it, and we give him a pass. But I see recently his name come up again. The opposition leader, Mr. Harmon, have cited him as one of the persons who seems to have inserted themselves into these police investigations. So, like the sister earlier revelations had more merit than at least I thought, So we need to recognize all these things. You have to keep your eyes on these developments. So the gentleman might not have been as innocent as we wanted to give him a fair run.
But I mean, professionalism in the police force. We spoke about it, but is there a sense now that because of the way the administration has been treating with the force, that there is some level of fear, that the ranks feel intimidated, and so that they are willing to bow to whatever pressures there are coming down from the administration to do things that definitely may not be right?
I think it's a combination of public fear and collaboration. You see, I think people have underestimated the level of corruption of these the police that took place in the 23 years of the PPP's rule. And because that rule was 23 long years, they have corrupted a lot of the senior officers in the police force. And now that they came to power, they made some rearrangements, and I guess they put back into place officers who are friendly to them. So I think it's both a question of fear, nobody wants to lose the job and want to stand up against the government, but I think there's also a deliberate element of collaboration, which is deliberate and political, and I think that is what makes it even more dangerous, makes it even more dangerous.
Because some of these very individuals
are criminals.
Well, and they have been associated with, acts against the people that really, call into question their professionalism.
I mean, you're seeing daily a lot of these questionable characters are resurfacing to positions, under the new regime, And we got to be careful, because we had fought against the criminalization of the state, which was one of the major characteristics of the PPP 23 years, and they made a coalition. Government in the last 5 years have done quite a lot to soften up and to decriminalize the state. But if you watch, and again, I'm getting into criticism of the people, I don't want to get in, but you have to keep wise, because we could have another rung at the resurfacing the criminalization of the state.
Let's in this same vein of persecution. The GCOM chair has come out suddenly out of the blue after being accused or of not defending the workers of GCOM who are under her charge. How do you find her sudden emergence?
Well, I think she was flushed out by her commissioners, Trotman, Alexander, and Corbin. I think that she felt cornered, and she felt exposed, and she felt that she had to say something to save her face. Now, I mean, I've read what she said, and I think that even if what she said is accurate, she has to accept full responsibility for the way the thing played out. Because if you're head of the election commission, workers under your watch, your commission is under investigation by the police. Okay, this is an important matter to the commission. A very important matter to the commission. And if the police approach you as the chair for information, you're supposed to relate that information, that request by the police, to the commission proper. And you don't have to wait for a commission meeting. You could send out a notice informing commission that this is the development. And if you decide to respond, even without a discussion of the whole the election commission, you take the responsibility as chair to respond, then you should also inform your commissioners on the response you made. And if she had done that, then the commissioners would not have had to pull her across the coals, the fire.
I get the impression that she's saying that the commissioners were at a meeting where the matter was raised, and was it?
But she never reported to the commission, as far as I know, that the police, because her defense is, look, the police did make requests to me. They make requests for information relative to the employment contracts of these persons. As far as she's concerned, that is a public information, therefore there's no secrecy, and she made it available. Now, she didn't tell that to the GCOM commissioners at any meeting before they made the accusation. To the extent that she said it is after. It's after. And once you behave the way she behaved, it is hard for any objective person accept her position without a pinch of salt, because you don't know whether she is telling the whole truth. You see, in these matters you have to be transparent, man, and she's a judge. You see, there's a problem I got. I mean, I have been, on this program during the whole election problems. I have been trying to be very balanced when dealing with her, and trying to, to be as objective as possible. But I'm saying my disappointment has always been she's a judge, and she can't claim not to know what is proper behavior and what is transparent behavior. And if you don't act transparent, you open yourself to all kinds of accusations, and when those accusations comes, you will have to live with it.
But the lady is saying that she is aware of the law, and she doesn't want to obstruct the police in whatever they were doing.
No, but this is not a legal matter. You see, communications with your commissioner is not a legal matter.
Okay.
It's a procedural matter. But she is developed enough on these matters to know that transparency requires her to inform her commissioners, on all the developments that is taking place in relationship to the police request, and she responds to the police request.
Well, what about the question of her not defending the people who are under her charge? Because she has said nothing in relation, even in dealing with that question of her giving the information to the police. She mentioned nothing about, making representation or having a concern about what is happening, or there was no that kind of disposition in whatever she said. So how does that?
It is clear that she is taking a hands-off approach on this matter. Um, I think you'll have to probably invite the commissioners to come and address this matter. I think they'll be more able to speak to it with more authenticity than I could. I will say professionally, and I speak as a lay person. I haven't. The only time I work in the public sector was during this government, the coalition government, tenure about 4.5 years or something. Therefore, I don't come to the table with a great lot of experience on public sector professional, obligations and protocols. So I can't really speak, but I would feel that she has a moral obligation to defend her workers as far as practically possible without violating any law or any particular procedure. But in this matter, because she is so tied up into to what is being allegedly being investigated, I think she probably feel compromised. I think she probably feel compromised. But it is clear.
In what way? I don't understand that.
Okay, in the sense that, remember, she didn't act in good faith. Having after the opposition leader and the then President Granger had struck with CARICOM the agreement that you will look at the numbers and you look also at the qualitative aspect of the thing. I mean, she is the judge, as we pointed out on the previous program. She must know whether that was possible at the time of signing. She must have read the laws and know. And she consciously behaved like though both things were binding on the commission. And as soon as we finish the tabulation of the numbers, she says over. And I think that that placed her in a very partisan position. And more than that, she acted not in good faith. I don't want to use too strong words for the program, but she acted not in good faith. And I think that she seems to be, because she acted that way, okay, I think she probably feels that she don't want to, or she's not in a position to defend anybody.
No, but
Not in
she can't be in a position to defend anybody because all her leanings were in one direction. So defending anybody now will make her create conflict with those whom she, aligned herself with and facilitated the process of allowing things that should not have happened to happen in the. So I mean, the entire election scenario, from the dealing with the court and all of these things, because the court should have never gotten involved in the first instance. I mean, the law would have stipulated that all the grievances should have been for an elections petition, and that was even brought out by the Caribbean Court of Justice that this recount business and all of that we went into really was basically outside. And in America, they started a recount, and it was stopped. And the same things that were not allowed in the United States, they forced upon us here, and she facilitated that. I mean, Trotman was trying to defend her and to say that he doesn't have any, and I was saying all the time that from all the leanings from the time she got here, with the casting out of the house registration and all the other things, and that we were heading down a path that was definitely not going to be as transparent as we wanted it to be, and the evidence came out eventually. So
well, it's always good to win these cases and the evidence.
Yeah.
Let the evidence reveal the correctness of your judgment, and in this particular case you were right.
Okay, so I mean, how would she defend them? In this,
she can't. She can't.
But it's a sad thing.
It's a sad thing.
It is a sad situation because I don't know.
And you see, you remember, you have Big Brother in the equation, the Americans, and she seems to be very close to the international forces. You know,
Well, I mean,
You know,
it is
very
alleged
close, very
that it
close.
was said by the American
You
ambassador
know, so
that she visited her home
You know,
regularly
so-
and so on.
so she can't defend nobody.
Yeah,
She
that's
works.
the point. I mean, just to let folks know, you want to talk about it, just inform people about it. Tomorrow's activity.
Or ACDA actively.
Uh,
Okay, normally the African Cultural Development Association, ACDA, every 12th of October for the last probably 27 years or so, they have been keeping a kind of floral tribute to the ancestors, where they go to the ocean, you know, and we throw flowers, you know, and we have libations and so. And there, tomorrow, the 12th, Monday, it's a continuation of that process, and it begins on 11:30 a.m. And the high tide, normally it coincides with the high tide, so that the flowers could be, you know, washed out, is 1 o'clock. And they're asking, you know, regulars and non-regulars to attend, wear face masks, and they say they will be observing strict COVID protocols. So we just wanted, on the behalf of AGDA, you know, Groundings, want to take this opportunity to alert, you know, the African community and the country as a whole on this very important annual activity.
The African Holocaust.
The African Holocaust, yeah.
That is dealing with it.
The transatlantic slave trade and the hundreds of thousands of Africans who probably went down into the oceans, you know.
So that activity is on tomorrow, and if you have the time, you can just at the
Seawall bandstand is normal, yes.
Right.
Time is 11:30 a.m. and the high tide is expected at 1. So
Now the Henry Boys, I saw recently that, you know, there was some kind of activity at number 5 in relation to the inaction by the police. But then I recently saw on Facebook, because the government was saying that, well, look, they've placed the investigation into the hands of competent international experts and so on. But I read on Facebook that the 2 guys who came from St. Lucia, the CARICOM experts, that they left. And I think they said they left. And they're saying that the detectives who handled the case were deliberately frustrating their efforts to deal with the matter, to get the evidence and so on. So, if that is true, how do you place that in terms of bringing real closure to this issue?
If that is true, it's bad news. I mean, I was not hopeful that the arrival of any foreign exports would make a significant difference, because I think that the foreign exports, in order to achieve, will have to have cooperation by the local forces. And since this thing is a very political size matter, and the governments clearly have clear outcomes that they want, as we said on the last program, they want to treat it as a drug-related matter and to take it away from the ethnic political realm. So they clearly have outcomes, and they have been working with the police to achieve those outcomes. And even if you put that aside for the time being, the success of any foreign exports depend upon the level of tolerance, thorough investigation, and professionalism and scientific investigation done by the local police. And I don't have that conviction and confidence that the local police have done anything that is significant and qualitatively will be helpful to any set of foreign exports. And they will have to be starting from scratch. And given the time factor and the losing of evidence, the physical evidence of the scene, and so, I am not very hopeful that it will yield anything. So I'm not surprised that if what you said is accurate, that the foreign experts who came from the CARICOM security forces, find themselves caught with some police officers who have been, who are unhelpful. It is consistent with what I would expect, So that would be bad news. But now that we have raised it on Groundings, I'm hopeful that we will get a response from the police as to whether what we're hearing is true. In the first place, whether the experts have left, and in the second place, whether they've been given the cooperation. Well, I don't expect I hesitate on that because I don't expect the police to say that they were not given the cooperation. But I mean, if they have left, they will have to explain why they left so suddenly. If they've completed their investigation, which is not likely, so that will speak for itself.
Okay, but the recent protests and the concern of the parents of the guys, the government seems to be suggesting that any further protest will be dealt with in a condign manner. How, in terms of empathy, do they share any kind of feeling, or do they in any way empathize with the parents of those children whose lives were snuffed out in that brutal way?
Once the PPP define anything as a threat to the whole and power, PPP is very clear. There is no consideration for anybody or any other factor. The feelings of the parents and the community and the grief and so on doesn't really matter. For them, they have said, they will say they have demonstrated enough of that in the Orleans. And any continuation of protests, and once they interpret as a threat to the government, they will act in a certain way, And my position to them: go on, do as you please. Do as you please.
To whom?
To whoever they choose to do. Sometimes you just gotta let people broke their own neck. And this is hard as the government said, the politicians, and you gotta let them broke their own neck, And if they believe that if people come out and protest that they gotta deal this with, in a certain way, let them go ahead. Actions always got reactions,
Anyhow, the concern is that the people are not pretty reactive now to a lot of things that are happening. But what is the thing that will break the camel's back? Because, like you said, well, you were saying that the opposition is not very vigilant in its representation of the mayors.
Well, it's not vigilant. They're not putting enough force behind the representation. I'm telling you. You look every time I go on the radio, the TV, all over the world, they see people protesting despite coronavirus. Guyana is the only country where the opposition and take the political people seems to allow coronavirus to, determine everything, So, but no, the country is being reopened up. I guess things will change. Things may change. Hopefully, things may change. Right. You see, there's time in the country's nation history and people's history. You have to balance between your long-term interests and the risks you may expose yourself, to an epidemic. You have to balance it and see which one you think is more important. People doing it all over the world, every day.
Time is almost with us, but there
the
was
nurses,
a meeting.
The nurses strike.
Okay.
Time is almost the time very quickly, but we cannot discuss at least give the nurses or continue solidarity. I read that the union and the government held a meeting, and it seems to have, for the time being, have settled on, if I recall clearly, a 2 weeks period for the government to give a definite response on how they intend to treat with the demands of the workers, and the leadership have put the strike on hold. Okay, so there seems to be in that negotiating mode. What I find interesting, I mean, we must. I think that the union have won a victory in the sense that they forced the government to come to the table, because the government didn't intend to come to the table.
But they issued a number of threats against the union.
So the fact that you force them to come to the table is a partial victory, but the final victory will be to what extent you get satisfactory outcome in terms of the things that your workforce are demanding. That's the final test. This is interesting. I note about 3 or 4 kinds of attitude in the government's handling of this matter. And as I tell you, I really don't want to get too deep into the government thing, but I probably have to. Okay, I noticed the Minister of Labour. His name is slipping me now. Hamilton. I noticed his approach. He was very pig-headed. He was very dogmatic. He was very aggressive on the workers and the union leadership. Accused them of being political, accused them of trying to bully the government. The government wouldn't stand for no bullyism and this and he was very hostile, And it's interesting that these African elements who, when they get into the PPP's camp, how they feel so comfortable of abusing workers and abusing people and to allow themselves to be used, in the most offensive way. And when I compare his response as a government minister, Minister of Labour, with the minister, with the response, I'm talking about public response. We don't know what they do privately. Okay. We're talking about the public responses. With the Minister of Health response, and Mr. Anthony, he was much more responsible, much more civil, much more balanced, much more professional. So when you compare the other idiot in the Ministry of Labour with this Indian minister, who, despite whatever he feels about the union engagement, and he behaved professionally and decent. So that's 2 behaviors. And then I noticed the president, and when I listen to what the president seems to be saying, is bad news. Ali seems to be saying the government ain't got no much to offer apart from the $150 million where they put aside in the budget. The workers and the leadership can't expect to get nothing much from this government. So that seems to be a bad news and an indication that they may not negotiate in good faith. So we got 3 positions. And then the 4th one I noticed was a former Minister of Health, Ramsamy, saying that they should bring in nurses from Sri Lanka, to bring, to replace the workers.
Guy from this guy on the ERC was saying that you should bring from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh, actually, but he was saying he did say either Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, some one of them. But so those were the 4 notable, responses that came out of the government, and 3 of them is very, disturbing, very disturbing. But consistent with PPP behavior.
Yeah, but I mean the reaction of the Minister of Labour. Do you feel? I mean, it seems like to be always that these guys believe that they have to prove themselves.
Yeah, they have to prove themselves.
So, proving themselves.
They have to prove themselves.
Means going all out.
And they're more PPP.
Yeah.
Than the Indian PPP are members,
Yeah, but
very unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Yeah, but they end up looking like fools eventually.
Yeah.
Because like you said, he was so arrogant and totally out of place. And the real PPP element
was very civil, professional,
So
It's
it's really a bad thing.
Yeah, it's bad.
But one of the things, because the claim is always that the government will not negotiate under duress, that the strike has to be called off or put on hold, as you would have said. But generally, those things are a means of distracting the efforts of the people, because the vigilance, the energy, and all of that, once that 2-week period gets into play, regaining that
momentum is always difficult.
Yeah. So this question of negotiating, saying that we're putting it on hold, how resolute will the nurses be, if at all what their expectations are not met?
Okay, I think the nurses will be resolute. The question is how resolute the leadership will be. Because it always boils down on the leadership when in these industrial matters. Because ultimately, workers will need the support and the oneness with the leadership. And most times, the workers are be more militant than the leadership. But we will see. We can't. We will get the answer. It's something to happen, So we will get the answers from the real world.
But are the requests that are coming from the nurses, are they in any way out of order? Or only the other day, one of the very, very competent nurses who was always at the Georgetown Hospital, he was at the emergency section. A young guy. But he was, the way he acted in a professional way, whenever you got there, he was always vigilant, diligent, and on the job. He died from COVID-19. And then there are accusations about Cuban doctors, having the disease and then being told to go back to work and all of these things. Are these concerns not genuine, that you should treat with the people as?
No, I think all the demands that the nurses made, as we said in the last program, I fully support. I think they're reasonable demands. Okay, but as everything else is a question of what priority the government gives to public sector workers. And the nurses happen to fall in the public sector, and they're normally
$5 billion.
They're the danger zone. They're the PPP striking zone.
Okay. It's a tragedy of our reality. And we can expect the same for the wider public service. I think that's a sad thing. Anyway, Brother Ogun, it's been a pleasure having you on the program as usual. And I want to thank the people who continue to give us the feedback every week. As soon as the program is done, we normally get calls and so on. Give us that encouragement. In fact, after the elections, I basically had said that I'm done with all of this, But now that the WPA is the WPA, I can't abandon the WPA. I can abandon the APNU. You understand?
You can't abandon yourself.
So you see me here is because it's WPA, all right? So I just want to make that known. But it's been good being here with you again. And do look out for us, those people on Facebook and so on, Wednesday evening at 7, when you have a Groundings program online. And this program will be here then. So see you next week, same time, same channel. Hopefully when we'll have Mr. Vincent Alexander and Brother Desmond Troutman. Do have a good night.
Fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every